Stuff I Learned Yesterday, episode 639, Monday Mailbag. Welcome to Stuff I Learned Yesterday. My name is Daryl Darnell. The first email was sent in 1971 by Ray Tomlinson, a computer engineer, to himself using a program called Send Message, which allowed users to send messages between computers connected to the ARPANET. And I believe that if you aren't learning, you aren't living. But what about you? Do you remember that first email address that you had, what it was, or when you established it? Do you still have it? I don't. But for me, I think it was a Juno email address that I set up when I was in college. I don't know how long ago I let that thing go, but it's been quite a while. Well, here we are once again in a month with 5 Mondays, which means it's Monday Mailbag Day. Now, for this installment of the Monday Mailbag, I have one contribution that I'd like to share with you. It's from Andrew. Here it is.
It's Andrew here, and my last Monday Mailbag was episode 613. Very quick recap. I explained in that episode that Colin, my brother, was diagnosed with MS, and he started running, and through that, he encouraged me to start running. What I didn't say in that episode is that on New Year's Eve of 2022, just a few hours before midnight, I was at Colin's house, and we made a spur-of-a-moment decision to start a podcast documenting our running journey. Now, the goal of this podcast was simply just to have fun. Till this day, we have always said that if me and Colin were the only 2 listeners of this podcast, it would be a fantastic success, because we just wanted to record our journeys, and really we didn't know where it would lead and if it would even last the full year. Well, this is now the 3rd year of the podcast, the 3rd season as we call it. This month we've hit 50 episodes, which maybe isn't a big number to some people, but it's massive for us. But what did I learn about starting a podcast? I learned that, believe it or not, other people will listen no matter how bad or how good you think your podcast is. Other people will listen, and more importantly is other people will connect with you. We now have a friend in Ohio who we have really, really connected with, and hopefully in the next year we hope to meet up and go for a run with, and that's really just come through this podcast. We have another friend here in Northern Ireland who's a semi-professional runner, and he gives us tips on how to run better. And it's not a normal podcast. If I say the name, you'll know it's not a normal podcast, because the name of our podcast is Idiots Go Running. Yes, that's right. Idiots Go Running. And it says what it does on the tin. My brother is a very good runner. I'm not. I don't really train for runs. I just turn up at events and try my best. And we have a lot of fun. It's actually, excuse the pun, more of a running comedy podcast than it is about running. But we have connected with so many people, those 2 guys in particular. And you know what? We get messages just out of the blue saying things that we have been an encouragement. Quite a few messages that people have said just how much our podcast makes them smile and makes them laugh. Every time we get a message like that, it just brings such a smile to our face. And the other thing that I learned is encouraged us to keep pushing the boundaries of what we can do, especially my brother. Last year, we ran 100 miles. At the start of this month, we took a trip to Greece to run the original marathon route. Now, I've never ran a marathon in my life. And to be honest, before this podcast, I never wanted to run one. And now that I've ran one, I don't know if I even want to run another one ever again. But we ran the original marathon route, and we've even fallen in with a guy called Dean Kernazes. He's a Greek-American runner who's quite well known in the ultra running world. And we met him in Athens. He took us out for dinner. He was a complete gent of a guy. And the last thing is, we spend more time together as brothers We have a lot of laughs. And you know what? We've both got wives. We've both got kids. And because of the podcast, it's brought a bit of a sense of adventure to our lives. Not that adventure wasn't there before, but just going out and doing things we never thought possible. It's just brought a bit of adventure. And now every year we try to do one thing which is running related and a bit special, a bit challenging. And looking back now at 3 years, we have already memories of a lifetime. And this all happened. Two guys decided to start a podcast. And if there's someone out there listening and they're thinking of starting a podcast, I would really, really encourage you to start a podcast. And even if you're the only one that you think is going to listen it back, do it. I am more than sure you will not be the only listener. And if you do, you could well make friends all over the world. You could get a bit of community going, and you might just even do or end up in places where you never thought possible.
Amazing. Amazing. I love your story, man. It's always good to hear from you, Andrew, and get an update. I'm like you, like you used to be. I can't imagine myself running, let alone running a marathon, to go to Greece and do the marathon there where it all started. That's a really cool thing to do. Like, there's a lot of people who run marathons, but how many can say that they've done that? My son was in Greece last summer. He spent a week in Greece and a week in Italy, and came home with amazing stories of how awesome Greece was. He had a great time in Italy as well. Had great experiences with all the people that he met there. But I think he liked Greece a little bit better. The food, the culture was a little bit more to his liking, and just had a great time there. So no surprise that you would have a great experience in Greece. From what I've heard from my son and others, Greece is an amazing place to go visit. I'm really awesome. I think it's really awesome. I'm really happy. I was trying to mix those two sentences together, that you've started a podcast. I'm going to check it out. It may not be my bag, but I'm definitely going to check out an episode and see what you guys are all about. It is amazing. I mention it all the time. In fact, I'm trying to think if it's an episode I just did, or if I just wrote, or if I just released, because I've been working hard to get a bunch of episodes written during this season of my life. But anyway, I know that I just mentioned recently about starting a podcast. And I just encourage everybody to do it. It's one of those things, when I started in 2008, again, didn't know who was going to listen, if anybody would listen. Why would anybody listen to me talk about a TV show? Sorry, I cut myself off there. Why would anybody listen to me talk about a TV show? But yet people did it. People continue to do it. People from all around the world. We just started Fringe back up, which I was in this season of trying to get ahead with Stuff I Learned Yesterday, because once the Fringe Rewatch podcast is in season, it's a grind. And, this first season, we just did this last week, and people from Europe are writing in, people from Canada are writing in. Of course, people from the States are writing in. We've met people from all over. I had a guy who lives in Wisconsin who was on business in Missouri, which is a state adjacent to Oklahoma. And he was like, close enough. I'm going to drive over and join you in studio for one of your podcast episodes. That's crazy. Like, who does it? Who's traveling, visiting a near enough state to then drive farther and join someone in studio? They do it because they like the content you're creating, the community that you've built, and it's amazing what comes out of those. And you're experiencing that firsthand. And that's why I encourage everybody to start a podcast, because you're underestimating yourself and the community and the relationships that you'll build and the lives that will be changed as a result of it. And so I love hearing your story. Idiots Go Running. If I were running or a runner, I think that's probably what I would call it, but you've taken the name. So I guess that means I can't start running. So, oh, well, 50 episodes is a big deal. It's a big deal. A lot of podcasts, we've said for years, and I don't know where it came from, but most podcasts don't make it past episode 4 or maybe episode 7, maybe episode 10. 50 is a big deal. So hats off to you. Congratulations. And keep sending me in updates. One last thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to share this or not. I was sharing this story with a colleague of mine earlier today, and he's like, yeah, you got to share that story. I am a sucker for Irish accents, and I've made that known on my podcasts before. I love your accent. I have no trouble whatsoever understanding a single word that you say. My first trip to Boston, this was probably, 2006, 2007, something like that. I was in town for a conference, and then when the conference let out, it was about 5:00, and I wanted to see as much of the historical stuff as I could before it got dark. So I jumped on the train and I took it north to the station closest to Bunker Hill, checked all of that out, and then started making my way back into town. And I found myself on the bay looking at the USS Constitution, Old Ironsides. It's an old ship from the Revolutionary period that is still commissioned, and I didn't get to make it to one of the tours. The tours had closed for the day, but I'm sitting there just looking at it, trying to take it all in. And this guy walks up to me and he starts talking to me, and he's Irish, and I can't understand a word he's saying. It's just his accent is so thick. And so he's talking to me. He's asking me questions. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm asking him to repeat himself. It's just not happening. And so I'm like, what do? I don't want to be rude to this guy. I feel bad that I can't understand him. And so I was like, well, I guess I have 3 questions. I can act like I understand him and just like, yeah. I can continue to ask him to repeat himself, which I've tried, and still not understand him. Or I can just look for an opportunity to walk away. So that's what I did. And I feel bad. I feel like he thinks that this was some rude American, I was in America. This guy just walked away. He was so rude and inconsiderate. And so I feel like there's this guy in Ireland who tells the story of when he went to Boston and encountered this rude American. But from my point of view, I feel bad. I couldn't understand him, but I love your accent, and I'm so grateful that you called in. And I'd love to get your take on that story. Maybe he was maybe you're like, yeah, he was probably from such and such. We can't understand him either. Or maybe you're like, no, it was just you. Your hearing problems. I don't know. But I love Irish accents. And so anytime you call in, not only do I get the benefit of hearing about you and your brother and your stories, but I enjoy your accent as well. So thanks for writing in. I appreciate it. All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks for joining me this week. Next week is a new month, which means it's Easter month. That's right. April is Easter month this year. So this first episode, where we typically are looking at a Bible type of inspired episode, I'll be taking a look at some historical details about the resurrection of Jesus. And I've tried to do it in a way that will be interesting to believers and non-believers alike. So I hope that you'll join me again next week for that episode. Well, I'm Daryl Darnell, and this has been Stuff I Learned Yesterday. Well, I want you to be a part of the next Monday Mailbag. It's taking place on June 30th. Of course, Monday Mailbag is your opportunity to share what you've learned so that I and other listeners can learn from you. It can be a message as short as 30 seconds. It can be several minutes long. It doesn't matter, just as long as it's something that will benefit others. You can send in questions or responses to my SILY episodes, and I'll respond to them via Monday Mailbag episodes. You can participate in Monday Mailbags by visiting the Golden Spiral Media listener feedback page at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback, or shoot me an email at feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com.